Hey guys, it's Mayora, and in this video we're going to dive into whether or not Jewish converts are really accepted in the Jewish community and what it actually feels like to be one. So I've wanted to share this for a while now because I think it's a topic that's just often overlooked or just totally sugar-coated, and I know many of you watching this channel are thinking about converting to Judaism or are in the process of doing so. So I thought it'd be just kind of helpful to give you my honest thoughts about what it's actually like to be a convert in the Jewish community and whether we're actually accepted. Now, if you're born Jewish, this video will also be relevant to watch because it can be pretty eye-opening to understand where we're coming from as converts within the community. I've had Jewish friends, for example, who were pretty shocked to hear about some of the experiences I've had, so hopefully you can gain a bit of insight from this video as well. Okay, so for a little context, I've been around the Jewish community for around 15 years and finally converted about 7 months ago. And what I've noticed about attitudes on conversion is that it's definitely a very mixed bag. Because on the record, the Torah tells us to welcome the proselyte with open arms. And if you ask like the average Jew what they think of converts, they'll usually give you a very positive on the record response, explaining how converts have the same status as born Jews, how we're completely welcome in the community, and that we're all basically the same. And while I'm sure these people mean well and actually believe it to be true, what people really don't talk about is the stigma that's sometimes, but not always, attached to being a convert. Now, I'm not here to try and dissuade anyone from conversion or, as for shalom, to speak ill of my own community, but I do think we should start having some honest conversations about this topic because I see a lot of pain amongst converts and just a huge opportunity to start fixing and healing the problem. Okay, so what is the stigma? I think it's both internal and external, meaning that internally, converts do often carry a bit of a complex about being new to Judaism, and there's a lot of insecurity that's just tied to that. Personally, I waited about 14 years before converting because I was so intimidated by the notion of Jewish peoplehood, and I just felt like such an outsider that it was actually really nerve-wracking to be in Jewish spaces. I didn't know how to pray or speak Hebrew. I was like really clueless around the holidays, and I didn't have Jewish parents to teach me the most basic things. So you just feel really handicapped, and you can't help but feel totally like less than when you're around born Jews. And also the whole idea of visually sticking out really is a big deal, and I think that's just human nature, but it comes into play even more when you're basically supposed to learn to be part of a people who happen to share a common ancestry. Like, I know I used to be super self-conscious when I first started going to synagogues, not because I was ashamed of how I looked, because I'm super proud of being Korean, but I was always so self-conscious that like people would think I was basically there for the wrong reason. And for whatever reason, my personal pet peeve was whenever someone would assume I was into Judaism because I was dating someone Jewish. And for the record, I started looking into Judaism when I was single, and it had nothing to do with anyone I was seeing, but there were times when I was dating someone Jewish and this question definitely did come up enough times. So anyway, I just think religion is the most personal aspect of life, and to have someone assume I was just another Asian woman dating a Jewish man drove me crazy and made me feel super defensive. So that was one of my big insecurities as a convert, since as a person of color I really do tend to stick out and there's just zero chance of blending in. And for converts who are not people of color, there's still often a huge insecurity around the issue of blending in when it comes to things like dress and even mannerisms. So I think it's pretty universal for converts to feel a bit insecure about how they might look or act differently from other Jews. And I think that's why you often see converts really take to the Jewish uniform, like dressing really frum, oftentimes like going full-blown black hat, which of course is a personal choice and basically depends on which community you belong to. But I do get a little curious when I see that, if it's a matter of trying to blend in rather than dressing in a way that actually feels very authentic. Though I'm not saying it has to be mutually exclusive. Anyway, whether it's just being new to the tribe and being at the earlier stages of learning, or just being nervous about sticking out in some way, I think converts often struggle, at least earlier on, with feelings of inferiority, unworthiness, or even just embarrassment, which creates a self-inflicted stigma over being a convert. And of course, this ideally wears off as one grows into their Jewish identity, but it's definitely there and something we very much deal with internally. Now, on the other hand, there can also be external factors in feeling this convert stigma, and most of that has to do with not being fully and truly accepted as Jews by all other Jews. And I'd say the vast majority of Jews, both in Israel and abroad, are 100% on board with converts, but there are definitely plenty of Jews who will treat us as second-class citizens or not even Jewish at all. There's actually a really great video asking Israelis what they think of converts, which I'll drop a link to in the description. I definitely recommend you to watch it to get a sense of the reactions, but basically when it comes to things like whether someone would marry a convert or allow their child to marry a convert, you can really see like the stigma coming into play, because oftentimes we're not considered very marriageable. Like if a Jew is looking for a shidduch, the shadchan will often ask whether they're willing to marry a convert, and just that positioning in and of itself really reflects how undesirable converts can come off to some Jews. Also, there are plenty of horror stories in the convert community, usually with people of color since we're more visible, where we're just generally snubbed and looked down upon or treated like a Shabbos goy, which is very painful, or just blatantly told that we're not Jewish, which is also very painful. But the point is that we're not fully accepted by the entire community, because there will just always be those pockets of people who see us as goyim and treat us like outsiders. So that's the bad news. Whether it's internal or external, convert stigma is very real, and I'm hopeful we can grow out of it as a community, but I do think we need to start openly addressing it and even gently calling it out when we recognize it as fellow Jews. But the good news is that by and large, I really do think that converts are mostly accepted as Jews, and in my personal experience, I've had way more support and generally positive feelings and experiences associated with my being a convert than basically all the negative ones. For example, I've had a lot of people tell me that's actually really inspiring to see me as a convert, being so dedicated and excited by Judaism, which is a really awesome compliment and, you know, such a great feeling to be able to inspire anybody in that regard. And I've had people tell me that they can really tell that my soul is Jewish, which to me is really the very meaning of being a Jew. So it's really heartwarming to have others actually see that in me. But even still, I do come across folks here and there who will tell me I'm not Jewish, and just knowing that I'm considered unmarriageable by certain people does feel a bit frustrating. So like I said earlier, the whole experience is a very mixed bag, and it definitely takes a lot of emotional and spiritual maturity to not only go through a conversion, but to learn to live and identify proudly as a convert. So I hope this video was helpful to give you a glimpse into some of the less talked about issues around conversion, namely the stigma that's often associated with converts, and that we can start moving away from these very complicated feelings by normalizing and celebrating Jews of all backgrounds, including converts like myself. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to my channel to check out more of my videos on Judaism and Jewish life. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thanks for sticking with me, and Shalom Aleichem.
Lift off, I got big dog status, I'm a big dog, I pull up on